It's a big, tremendous week for us, one that we needed, and the guys have been working awfully hard, and so to see them get some success, that was fun. And like I said over the weekend, really appreciative of our crowd, our student body. The last two games have been really good, and we've been good at home. Even in this season, we've been good at home, but I think the next step now is what we can do away from home, and the guys are playing a little bit better, and we're seeing some growth in some areas, but now you got to do it away from home, and this particular team hadn't proven that yet. Now we've got 3 straight to finish this 5 out of 7 stretch on the road, and we've got to be able to not just go out and play well, but we got to have some results now.
This is a little bit of an easier road game, given you don't have to travel.
Well, that's the only part that's the non-difficult part, is just getting on a bus and depending on traffic, how long it's going to take. But you know, at least we're not dealing with airports and that kind of stuff, and it's the same way for them at the end of the year. But no, it's difficult because it's in-city rival. You got a lot of things that are fun about college basketball. When we get a rival like this, that's a lot of fun, and so I think there's going to be a ton of energy in the building. You got 2 teams that are relatively young and inexperienced, and I'm sure Andy, not speaking for Andy, but I think his team's playing better than what it was a month ago, and I think we are too. So it makes for a really good early conference season game.
Is that something that's talked about a lot, is between the players and maybe other coaches of other teams here, the rivalry between USCs? No,
I don't know if it's talked about that much. You know, you kind of assume it, you know it. You know, whether it's fans from UCLA, fans from USC, they're going to talk about it a lot. And but you know, from coaching and players, it's about the next game, and you've got to concentrate on the next game and be better in these 40 minutes than you were the last 40 minutes. And I thought we did that over the weekend. I thought we played a really solid 50 minutes against Stanford. Had a little bit of lull, but they're a very good basketball team. And I thought we put 40 really solid minutes together against Cal. So now you go to the road, it just magnifies. It gets harder. It gets more difficult when you do it away from home. And you're doing that now at a rival, and you know, that kind of thing. So it just adds to the energy. It adds to the emotion. And a big key is, which young team can settle and not make mistakes. You know, victory always favors the team making the fewest mistakes, and we've got to be able to play at the pace we want to play at without making a lot of mistakes.
Tony has always seemed to have a kind of a secondary role, and it seems like now he's becoming more a part of the game plan. What is it about what he's done this year that makes you think he can handle that?
Well, I think he's being more assertive. You know, if you look at his progression, that's what you want. You want progression. You know, I think 4 or 5 minutes a game his freshman year. Last year it's like 18, 19. Now this year it's nearing 24, 25 minutes of play. And so you want that development. It's not just the development offensively, but with him being able to defend and stay in position and not get in foul trouble to where we can play him longer minutes. He and Thomas getting to practice against each other every day. I think that's helped both of them because they're both legit centers, where last year Tony trying to chase around either one of the wares on the perimeter wasn't easy because both David and Travis were like stretch 4s that could take you out to 25 feet. And now he's battling Thomas in the paint a lot. Now, this is a team he's going to have to guard. You know, our bigs have got to guard bigs that can drive the basketball, and so they've got to do a good job with positioning. But Tony's just getting better and better, and he's starting to gain some confidence because he's demanding the ball a little bit better. He's getting the ball at better positions, and he's starting to finish things really well.
With you guys going inside more, how important is he to the success of what you guys want to do going forward?
Oh, he's very important, and not just Tony. You know, I think with what you're seeing, Gigi playing well. Gigi's giving us a lot of good minutes off the bench. Obviously, Kavan's been very consistent all year long, and Thomas is going to continue as it slows down for him and he gets some confidence and momentum. You're going to see Thomas start doing some things at a real positive rate as well. So those 4 bigs are key for us. You know, we knew that's where our depth was going to be, though most of it inexperienced. 3 of them are freshmen. But Tony has done a really good job of leading that big group, and by example, not just verbally, but by example. The guys are seeing that, they're feeding off that energy, and he and Kavan started, and then Gigi and Thomas are doing a really good job with a lot of good effort coming off the bench.
For Tony, is that just kind of a position he stepped into, maybe the void that Kyle or Jordan or those guys that he came up with had left when they left?
Yeah, you know, he came in with those guys, and, you know, and those guys are winners. Tony's a winner, 4 state titles in high school, so he understands winning, and that's the good thing about this team. We've got a lot of guys that have a winning mindset. So when they lose or they're on the other side, that's not fun. And they get it, and they just continue to work harder to get through things. And Tony's no different. Tony has had a great mindset through this whole thing, and I thought he was really good this weekend. And now it's just a consistent. Doesn't mean he's going to get 25 and 12 every night, but he's got to consistently be able to play out of foul trouble, be able to play in the low post and be a dominant factor in the low post, whether by scoring or passing out when he's double teamed, and all those things he's doing much better with.
Since you first started working with him, what do you see Tony struggle with the most in terms of staying out of foul trouble?
Just positioning, and that's usually foul trouble. Usually guys get in foul trouble when they're out of position, and he's really worked hard. He's like a lot of our guys, but he watches a lot of tape. He comes in, he was in yesterday watching tape with us. He wants to learn, and it's just about making himself he gets open a lot in an open stance, and when you're in an open stance, a lot of times you can get in foul trouble that way, or you're out of position. And he's really worked to stay enclosed and really paying attention to our rules and getting in, making sure you're in good defensive position. And I think that's helped him. This last weekend played, you got Nastic, you got the bigs that were with Cal plus Kravish. He's been challenged, and he stayed out of foul trouble, and that helped his offense get going. And when you're in foul trouble, you just get out of rhythm. There's been games where we've played him 3 minutes, he gets 2 fouls, and now you're out of rhythm. And he's learning to stay out of foul trouble, and now he's getting much more in rhythm now offensively.
What did you guys do right that you weren't in the last 2 games that you weren't doing during the losing streak?
Well, one, I think you got to look at just the teams defensively. We were looking about that the other day. In that stretch, I think Colorado's ranked 60th defensively. The other 6 losses come to defenses that are ranked top 25 in the country. So we were really being defended by high caliber teams, with a young team doing it for the first time away from home the way they had to do it. So a lot of that has to do with it, but from an execution standpoint, we got back to sharing the basketball to where our assists were up, our turnovers were down. And that's big for us, because not just from a share of the basketball standpoint, but the elimination of turnovers, because we're able to set our defense. And through all this, even the losing streak, our defense has been getting better. Over the last 3 or 4 weeks, our defense has been improving. The guys are talking more, but when your turnovers are down, you got to set your defense. If your turnovers are up, like we've had in some of those games, it can be disastrous, and we're just not a team that can handle that. And so I think that's where we're seeing, from an offensive standpoint, now we're able to get a little bit better shots. Not that, in those 2 wins, it's not like we shot lights out. I just thought we got better shots. I told the guys, even if we're missing free throws, getting to the line is better than not getting to the line. And just stand stable with what we're trying to do, be consistent with what we're doing defensively. And I think that's what we saw. And we saw a little bit at Alabama, a little bit at Colorado, even though we were on the other end of it. Those 2 games, we did enough good things to win. We just didn't make plays in the end.
Speaking of turnovers, it seems like when Bryce does find himself in trouble, it's a lot of times towards the baseline or when he leaves his feet. Right. Is that something he's working on?
Absolutely. Yeah. And he's watched a lot of tape. We brought him and Isaac in, and they both done a really good job watching a lot of tape, like on Steve Nash, of keeping your dribble. A lot of these guys like seeing guys at the ultimate level, and I think Bryce and Isaac both, but in particular Bryce, because he's our point guard, he gets in trouble when he leaves his feet. And especially over the weekend, his assists were up, turnovers were down, he stayed on the ground. You would see him probing, and that's what we're really trying to work with him on, and he's learning that. He's young too, and he's learning that. And I thought he made a lot of progression over the weekend, and Isaac got back to where it frees Isaac up to where he's able to get the shots that he got over the weekend, and that's going to be big for us. But without question, leaving his feet, something we've been working on.
What do you think of Tony's charge that he took?
Well, we watched tape, and we actually did that yesterday. We re-rounded, I think, 4 or 5 times, and it was a split vote on whether he actually moved into position or he was just in the way of the driver. But regardless, Tony will tell you what was called. It was a charge. So if we can get a charge out of him, then anybody can take a charge. So we're happy with that. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Appreciate it. Thanks.